A physicist will tell you that if you travel fast enough through space, time slows down for you while the rest of the universe keeps moving at full speed. Travel far enough and come back, and everyone you knew is dead. Their children are dead. Their civilization might be gone. This is not science fiction. It is one of the most verified predictions in all of physics. A physicist published the mathematics for it in 1905, but there is a text written somewhere between 2,500 and 5,000 years ago that describes a man who did exactly this, not as a thought experiment, as something that happened. He left Earth, waited briefly in another realm, and came back to find that 116 million years had passed. And the text does not stop there. It describes what he found when he got back. Not just that time had passed, but that the human beings around him had physically changed. That his daughter, who had made the journey with him, was now too tall to stand beside the men of this new era. That she was, in every physical sense, from a different version of the human species. And it describes someone who already knew all of this before they left, who could look at the entire timeline and point to a specific man, alive right now, in the correct era, and say, that is the one. The story comes from the Bhagavata Purana, one of the foundational texts of Hindu scripture, written in Sanskrit and estimated to be between 2,500 and 5,000 years old. It describes a king named Kakudmi, ruler of the ancient kingdom of Kushastali, prosperous realm on the western coast of India. Kakudmi had one daughter. Her name was Revati, and by every account in the scripture, she was extraordinary in beauty, in learning, in character, in all the qualities that mattered in that era. When the time came to find her a husband, Kakudmi could find no one worthy. Every prince he considered, every king he evaluated, fell short. He sat with this problem for a long time. He was not a man who gave up easily, but every prince he considered had some flaw he could not overlook, some quality that fell short of what he knew his daughter deserved. So he made a decision that no mortal king had made before. He would go to Brahmaloka, the realm of Brahma, the creator, and ask the creator himself who was worthy to marry his daughter. When they arrived at Brahmaloka, they found that Brahma was occupied. Performance by the Gandharvas, divine celestial musicians, was taking place in the great hall. Kakudmi and Revati waited, respectfully, patiently, the way a mortal stands when they have come before the creator of the universe. The performance ended. They were received. Kakudmi bowed, presented his daughter, and explained why he had come. He listed the names of the princes and kings he had considered. One by one, he laid out the candidates he thought might be worthy. Brahma listened, and then he laughed. Kakudmi had prepared for this meeting for years. He had made a list. He had traveled beyond the mortal world to ask the creator himself. He was ready for an answer. The answer he got was not about any of the names on his list, not cruelly. The scripture says he smiled and explained, but what he explained stopped Kakudmi cold. Every man on that list was dead. Not recently dead, long dead. Their sons were dead. Their grandsons were dead. Kakudmi stood very still, the scroll still in his hand. Kingdoms those men had ruled were gone. The cities had risen and fallen. The entire civilization Kakudmi had left behind had completed its arc and been forgotten. While Kakudmi had waited in Brahmaloka for a musical performance to finish, 116 million years had passed on Earth. But Brahma did not stop at explaining what had been lost. He told Kakudmi what was happening on Earth right now, in this moment. He named the era. He named the god. He named the specific man. Vishnu was incarnate on Earth. He had taken two forms. One was Krishna. The other was Balarama, Krishna's elder brother. Go back to Earth, Brahma said. Find Balarama. Give him your daughter. This is the detail that separates this story from every other ancient myth about time. Brahma did not just explain that time had passed. He demonstrated that he could see the entire timeline at once, past and present simultaneously, and act within it with complete precision. In 1905, a physicist published a set of equations that described exactly this. Not Brahma's omniscience, but the time dilation itself. The theory of special relativity states that time is not a fixed constant. It moves at different rates depending on how fast you are traveling through space. The faster you move, the slower time passes for you relative to someone who stayed still. Physicists call this the twin paradox. One twin stays on Earth. The other gets on a ship and travels at near light speed for 10 years of ship time, then comes back. When the traveling twin returns, they are 10 years older. Twin who stayed on Earth is 707 years older. Not the same age, not similar ages, 7 centuries apart. At 99.99% of the speed of light, 10 years of your life would correspond to 707 years passing on Earth. If you traveled to the Andromeda galaxy and came back, the journey might take 30 years of your own time, but 5 million years would have passed on Earth. Every person you left behind would be gone. Not just them. Every civilization they built, every language language they spoke, every record they left. And when you came back, you would be physically incompatible with the species that had evolved in your absence, because they would have kept changing while you stayed the same. This is what happened to Revati. The ancient city she walked back into was built on the same ground as the city she had left. The streets followed similar paths. Temples pointed in similar directions. She had left as a princess. She returned as something the world she returned to had no category for. She was the same age she had always been, the same person, the same face, the same hands, the same voice. But the world around her had moved on without her for 116 million years. And the gap between what she was and what the world expected showed in every step she took. The Bhagavata Purana describes that when Kakudmi and Revati returned to Earth, they found that the race of men had become dwindled in stature, reduced in vigor, and enfeebled in intellect. To understand what it means that Revati was physically from a different era, it helps to understand what the Hindu scriptures say about how human beings change across yugas. The Hindu scriptures are specific about this. In the Satya Yuga, the era Revati came from, the average human lifespan was 100,000 years. The average human stature was 21 cubits. By the Dvapara Yuga, the era she returned to, the average lifespan had dropped to 1,000 years. The average stature had dropped to 7 cubits. Revati had not changed. She was still exactly who she had been when she left, the daughter of a king from the Satya Yuga, carrying its height, its vitality, its physical character. She was not out of time. She was out of species. Kakudmi found Balarama exactly where Brahma had said he would be, in Dvaraka, the city that had once been Kushasthali, Kakudmi's own capital, rebuilt and renamed in his absence. He proposed the marriage. Balarama accepted. But there was the matter of her height. Balarama did not comment on the difference in their heights. He did not ask her to explain where she came from. He simply looked at her, understood what was needed, and acted. The Bhagavata Purana says that Balarama reached out with his plow and gently pressed it to her shoulder. And as he did, she adjusted to the height of the people of this era. Kakudmi watched. He had done what a father is supposed to do. He had found the right man. The scripture does not explain the mechanism. It simply records what happened. A woman from one version of humanity was made compatible with another at the moment she chose to belong to it. Einstein's equations do not describe Brahma. They do not describe the plow. They do not describe the scripture. What they describe is the mechanism underneath the story, the physical reality that makes the story possible. Time runs differently at different speeds and in different locations in the universe. This is not mythology. It has been measured. Satellites in orbit run their clocks slightly faster than clocks on Earth because of the difference in gravity and velocity, and the entire GPS system has to correct for it, or the navigation would fail within minutes. This is not theoretical. Every time someone uses navigation on their phone, a correction is applied for the fact that time runs slightly faster at the altitude of the satellites than it does on the ground. Without that correction, the position would drift by about 11 kilometers per day. The entire system would become useless within a week. Brahmaloka, the realm Kakudmi visited, is described in the Bhagavata Purana as existing beyond the 3 modes of material nature. Whether that is understood spiritually or physically, the text is describing a location where time operates by different rules than it does on Earth. What the physicists spent a career formulating in equations, the scripture embedded in a story about a father looking for a husband for his daughter. The same truth. 2 containers, separated by 2,500 years. Text was not written as a physics paper. It was written as sacred scripture, as a story about dharma and devotion and the nature of divine time. But embedded inside it is a description of time dilation so precise that when the mathematics finally arrived, 2,500 years later, it described the same thing. A king who went looking for the right husband for his daughter found something no one had told him he was looking for. A demonstration in a realm outside of time. That time is not what it appears to be from inside it. The scripture records one more detail. When Kakudmi and Revati returned, his own capital city no longer bore the name he had given it. The city of Kushasthali, his kingdom, his legacy, the place he had ruled and loved, had been renamed Dvaraka and rebuilt by people who had no memory of him whatsoever. He came back. He found the man. He gave his daughter away. There is something in that choice worth pausing on. He had seen what time does to everything. He had watched his entire civilization vanish during a musical performance. He had given his daughter to a world that remembered nothing of him. And then, the scripture says, Kakudmi followed Brahma's other advice. He went north to the Himalayas, to Badranath, where he spent the rest of his life in meditation, and when death came, he left it behind too. The Bhagavata Purana records that Revati and Balarama had 2 sons, that she lived a full life in Dvaraka alongside her husband, that she was eventually at his side when he ended his earthly incarnation, meditating by the sea. A woman who had traveled 116 million years into the future found, in the end, what her father had gone looking for, a life that fit. A man who traveled through time to find a husband for his daughter ended up discovering something that a physicist would spend his entire career trying to prove.